Welcome to this mantra breathing today. We're so happy to have you all with us. And we're so happy also to be talking about this subject, releasing religious dogma. We all have a little bit from our past, from our childhood, and we want to make sure that we clear it and we're not carrying false religious theology around in our mind, and we don't want to be affected by it anymore.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I chose this topic is we have this client who's wonderful, and he was raised a strict Catholic. And he told us, which I didn't know, that the priests were told the children that if they go directly to God and don't use a priest to get to God, they could go to hell. And he grew up with that you can't go directly to God by yourself. And I was so shocked about this. I never knew that the Catholic Church told people that in this level. And then I read that, even if you weren't a Catholic in this life, you might have been in the last 5 lifetimes. And you need to clear religious dogma in the last 5 lifetimes because it's still affecting you 5 lifetimes ago. So probably most of us were Catholic in this lifetime. Now, I was raised a Lutheran, so at least I didn't have that thing you have to go through a priest, because Luther straightened that out. However, we still had the belief in original sin and so on. And when they tell a kid you're born with original sin, then you feel like you can never overcome it because you're born with it. And so most of us were told some kind of insanity in our religion. So I wanted to read that. Some religious leaders say when something terrible happens, it's God's will, and that's not true. This is a lie. God is never the source of any evil. So that's another horrible thing that children are taught. Religions for centuries have approved death of countless numbers of people in wars, and that's insane. And so most religions teach sin, and sin is not real, according to Course in Miracles. It's an idea of evil that cannot be corrected. Well, if you were told you were a sinner, that cannot be corrected, according to the church. The Course in Miracles says if sin were possible, it would be irreversible. Sin is the proclamation that attack is real and guilt is justified. If sin is real, then punishment is just. Sickness is another name for sin. Attack is the same as sin. So the Course says we actually think suffering and pain will bring us joy. That's how screwed up we got, that we think suffering and pain bring joy. I couldn't believe it when I read that. So if sin were real, then happiness would be an illusion, because the sinful warrant only death and pain. So if you have the concept of sin in the last 5 lifetimes, then you believe you deserve pain and death. Pain is the cost of sin, and suffering can never be escaped. If you believe in sin, then you can never give over your suffering. If sin is real, then its offering is death. And it says all special relationships have sin as their goal. If you sin, your guilt is everlasting. From the ego came sin and guilt and death, and the wages of sin is death, and this is insane. Sin does not exist. Everything that God created is forever without sin. God, who created neither sin nor death, wills you not to be bound by those. Forget your dreams of sin and guilt. Happiness can never be found where sin is cherished. So are you willing to be released from sin forever today? That's it. So now I'm going to read a little bit from my new book, Revolutionary Spiritual Healing. The remedy for all this is called the atonement. So start to breathe now and take this in. The atonement is the correction of all our wrong thinking. It is complete forgiveness. It undoes the belief that we're separate from God. It's the decision to accept ourselves as God created us. And God created us without our personal lie. See, and God created us perfect. So the full awareness of the atonement is the recognition the separation never happened. Therefore, there is no sin and there is no guilt.
So Tara Singh used to say, there's only the sleep the sleep of forgetfulness. Like there's no sin, but we have fallen into kind of a sleep where we've forgotten who we are as God created us. And this whole lifetime, the purpose of our lifetime is to remember who we are as God created us. And we always have been as God created us, but we forgot. We fell into kind of a sleep and went into sort of a dream, a dream of the ego, a dream of a nightmare, a dream of quote unquote sin. It's not real, but we dreamed it up. And now we're waking up and seeing that all these things that we were fed from our childhood religions, some of them were really good, but some of them were really off. And one of them that was off was this belief in sin and belief that we are originally born into sin.
So A Course in Miracles has a lot to say about the atonement. It leads us to forgiving ourselves for everything and forgiving everyone else for everything. Then our forgiveness is complete, which could be called the atonement. The atonement sets you free. It clears away all thoughts that hurt. In order to make this shift, it's necessary for inner corrections to take place. So then you become aware of your true self. The sole responsibility of God's teacher is to accept the atonement for himself. Atonement means correction, the undoing of errors. When this has been accomplished, the teacher of God becomes a miracle worker. His sins have been forgiven and he no longer condemns himself.
So everybody here, this is your job. Accept the atonement for yourself. And in doing that, you become a miracle worker. And you become a light for everyone around you who has not remembered themselves and who still subconsciously thinks they're a sinner. So in your presence, where you've totally let go of that notion, your light can help wake people up. And that light waking people up is miraculous. You become a miracle worker.
The atonement is seeing that there is no sin, only errors in thinking, and all errors can be corrected. With errors, there is no guilt, there's no condemnation, and there's no punishment. Okay? So this idea washes away all the church dogma that taught you were born a sinner. A lot of people today are so conditioned, affiliated with, are not so conditioned or affiliated with the church, because religion is so much not in their life. But even though the church is not present, 5 lifetimes of religious conditioning can be carried into this one with guilt. Therefore, it's important for everyone to remember original innocence is our only reality. All errors are correctable. There's nothing but innocence in the world of pure life, and only what pure life creates exists.
There's a lesson later on in the course. It says, God's answer is some form of peace. All pain is healed, all misery replaced with joy. All prison doors are opened, and all sin is recognized as merely a mistake. So a mistake can be corrected. A sin demands punishment. So we have to just see that, hey, we all made mistakes, no problem. It's normal. It's normal in our process of waking up to make some mistakes, but they can be corrected. And there's no guilt involved with a mistake. It just is something that's not true. And when we see what's true, we correct ourselves. And that's the correction of the error. And that's not a sin. That's just a mistake that we correct.
So now if you need healing of some illness or tension or pain or whatever, listen to this. Healing and atonement are not related. They are identical. There is no order of difficulty in miracles because there are no degrees of atonement. Accept the atonement and you are healed. So we want to start breathing on that. I accept the atonement for myself today. And so the atonement is the final miracle. It's the remedy. And any type of healing is the result. Atonement heals with certainty and cures all sickness, it says in the Course in Miracles.
Atonement is simply complete forgiveness. You don't withhold any forgiveness from anybody. You decide that you're going to forgive everyone and everything, including yourself, completely at 100%. And when you've taken that step and you don't hold any grievances and you take responsibility, that's the atonement.
Yeah, so when you accept the atonement, you're accepting yourself as God created you, not with your personal lie, not with any fear, not with any guilt. You're accepting yourself as perfect as God created you. So the miracle is the means and the atonement is the principle and healing is the result. So perfect love is also the atonement. And perfect love casts out any fear. Any problem you're having right now is related to fear. You might not be feeling the fear, but there's only fear or love. There's only two true emotions. So any problem in your body is fear. Any problem in your life has to do with fear, although you might not be aware of it. So accepting the atonement is accepting perfect love from Christ, and this will heal you. So joining the atonement is the way out of fear, and it's the end of guilt. And it's the way you dispel all illusions, which are false ideas, false negative thoughts. So the atonement is really the answer. So I'm going to end this with some points I made. The atonement is enlightenment. The atonement will make you sharper and sharper. The more you accept the atonement, the happier you will be, obviously. The atonement is the gift you give yourself. It's choosing bliss for yourself. And you can now experience it when you choose the atonement. Forgiveness, salvation, and atonement are all the same. So now ask the Holy Spirit to help you accept the atonement for yourself today. And you'll have a miracle. So it's a correction of all your wrong thinking. It's forgiveness of everything. It's the end of guilt. It's perfect love. It's how your worth is reestablished. It's the way of peace. It's the return to your real self. It's the key to happiness.
It's also being in the present, without the past. Any regrets, any guilt, any, feelings of anything.
Right.
Are all from the past. Right. They're not here now. Yeah. We're commiserating about our past. If we're feeling guilt, we're commiserating about something that's not even here. So part of the atonement is to be in the present and see that the past is over. It can't touch us, and all mistakes can be corrected. And the mistake, we've probably already corrected it. So we can just let go of the past and be here now in the present, in our innocence, in our joy, in our perfect happiness, and be unaffected by the past.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's interesting he said that, because it says here the atonement might be equated with total escape from the past and total lack of interest in the future. Heaven is here now in present time. That's what I was going to read next. Okay, we're going to do something unusual today, too. We're going to play the Messiah and breathe to the Messiah. And Marcus has been playing it a lot lately for some reason. He's kind of really getting high on that. So we thought you guys would be a good day to clear religious conditioning to play the Messiah. And when Handel wrote that, I think he went into his room and he fasted for 11 days and he cried the whole time while he was downloading this beautiful music.
Yeah.
So we're going to breathe that back today.
He wrote it in only a couple of weeks. Yeah. So and if you follow it through and you read the libretto, it was written in English, actually. Even though Handel was a German composer, he was in the court of the English king, and he was the court composer for the King of England. So he wrote that Messiah during his commission with the English court. So the Messiah itself is in English. And sometimes you can't understand the chorus, but Some of the solos you can understand every word very clearly, but you can get the libretto online. You just Google Handel's Messiah.
And so while we're playing this, if anything comes up in your mind that's negative, just say, I accept the atonement for myself. And then breathe through that every time something negative comes up.
Thank you, everyone. That was beautiful. I know that my Redeemer liveth, and we shall all rise from the dead. There were some good things that they taught us in church. And one is that we're immortal as spirit, and we can rise from the dead and be who we are as God created us. We'd like to hear how this was for you. This is the first time we played something that's not Eastern mantra, and I think it was pretty powerful for me.
So write to me, Sandra, at sandraray.com.
That was not all of the Messiah, but some of the key parts. The trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. Then shall we be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory.
Yeah.
If God be for us, who can be against us? Worthy is the Lamb, hath redeemed us to God. Blessing and honor and glory and power be unto him, unto the Lamb forever and ever. Well, I think we know enough about ourselves now through rebirthing that we can take the good stuff and let the false religious dogma go. Thank you so much for being with us. And next weekend we'll be in India, and we'll see you then. Tove will be the hostess. Thanks, Carl, for being here. Thanks, Monique. Thanks, Leonard. We'll see you in India, Leonard. Thanks, Adrian. God bless you all. Thanks, Jacek. We'll see you in India soon. Everybody's good. All right. God bless you all. Have a good weekend. Next weekend's Easter, by the way. So we'll see you then, Easter weekend.